The crux of the first problem is you deciding what it is that you want. So how can we help you unpack what it is that you want?
I have no idea how to answer that question. I feel like I've been wrestling with that for years.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded men who desire momentum in their business, their family, and their finance get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. I am personally glad you're listening in today because we have a pretty cool episode. We are turning it up a notch again with Big A. We've invited a couple of seasoned business guys to join us on what we're calling this episode of The Forge. So our man in the middle, our Forge episode today, man, we're grappling with the decision on how he views his business to keep himself kind of in the business, or how he's going to sell it, how fast, how slow, how does he approach the near future. So I hope you hang out with us and wait for him to come in and we dive into this topic today. Well, y'all know me as Wally. Big A's here. I've also got Brett, the Bulldog Barnhart, and Anthony Witt with us today. Welcome, guys.
Glad to be here.
Good to be here.
Hey, guys. Good to see y'all. Hope you're doing well. It's been a great day. Brett, I was showing Robin some pictures of your kids a couple of days ago. Brett's kids have taken up with Robin like their grandmother. I mean, it's unbelievable. She could not believe that your son had that blanket she made him on your cruise. That was pretty cool. I just wanted to tell you that was cool to see. And Anthony, the other day, man, I was a little concerned about you. I looked over and you're sitting in church with a blonde. What is that about?
Hey, I can't control what she does, man.
I know. I was like, man, does Anthony know that he's sitting in the wrong row? And then I looked and all of his kids were there. And I went over and I said, got him a blonde now. This is looking good. Looking good. She looked great. Sarah looked great, man. Good to see you guys today. Excited to get our guest in the house today, man. We're going to do the Forge. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. Let's bring in Eric today. Eric, good to see you, big man. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Thank you for having me. Excited, a little bit nervous.
What are you nervous about? There's nothing to be nervous about. We've got these guys lurking in the shadows there. They're ready to pounce at a moment's notice. So you better be careful, man. These guys are loaded up. They've been like thinking about this for a couple of weeks, and so they're loaded for bear today. Eric, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your situation and what you'd like to accomplish today in the Forge.
Yeah, so after college, worked at an ad agency. 3 years in, quit, and my wife and I started a video agency, trying to be the opposite of how terrible of a culture that was, and really trying to focus on building a good culture and a great company. At first, we just made videos for every type of business. Now we specialize in sales and marketing videos, mainly for tech and science companies. It quickly took off as we were kind of in a blue ocean market in 2011, 2012, and it built at a steady clip year over year. We kind of capped out at a certain level of sales and eventually got burnt out. And all the weight was on me for a decade. And I read Traction, the EOS book. I hired an integrator. At first, it was great, achieved a level of freedom that I never knew was imaginable. But then I felt kind of purposeless and went off on this sort of finding myself journey. On top of that, he was very immature and kind of difficult for me to lead. So that was really chaotic time for me mentally, since he was all gas, no brakes. And he overspent to drive sales way up, really put us in a hole. Cash flow got bad, and I let him go and ended up hiring another integrator who was more seasoned and financially savvy, and was able to climb us out of the hole mostly operationally, but not ultimately able to keep the revenue engine going. And so he actually stepped down, and I've taken over leading the team recently, and actually loving it, feeling a lot of purpose and a lot of meaning. In that time, I also had kind of a mental breakdown with some panic attacks, a season of that, and also did a startup as well that ultimately failed. But it was a great learning experience. I've had a lot of fun. It's been an up and down roller coaster through the decade. So really feel like I have a good sense of where we're going. But there always is that question of grappling with this tension of, do I optimize for a cash flow business? Because I've kind of earned myself, or made it where I have a lot of freedom of time, money, and purpose. Maybe struggling with the purpose here and there, but ultimately time and money, the freedom to do ministry, the freedom to have margin, the freedom to do things with my family that I want to do, those sorts of things. But I also crave growth, and every time I've gone for growth, I hit a ceiling and I come back down. And so, not exactly sure. Kind of really thinking about, as we get to the end of the year now, just thinking about the future, thinking about the next vision, and trying to figure out kind of what exactly to do. What we do isn't exactly the hot new thing anymore, so it requires a lot of reinvention to get to that exit. And just trying to really wrestle with that.
Eric, let's go back to 2011 just for a second. You said you burned out. And why did you burn out, and how long did it take you to burn out?
It probably took me 8 to 10 years to burn out. There's always a challenge. It was always a struggle. There's always in business and in life, there's always, good times and bad times, and times of confusion and times of clarity and those sorts of things. Right. And, there was just, struggle after struggle that I'd kind of overcome. And then I'd get to like a level of everything operating well again. And then we'd hit some lead gen problem. We couldn't get enough leads in, or there was a marketing situation, or a sales rep was bad, whatever. We always came across obstacles, and then we overcame them. And, it takes a toll on you. It's exhausting to do that over and over, especially when you're the sole leader and have the leadership mantle on you, where everything just is landing on you ultimately. That kind of just took a toll on me. Honestly, it just was a pile of those. And eventually it got to the point where I was like, I need someone else to come in and take this for a little bit and get it off my plate.
What was your, how long did you be? So 2011 is kind of when you started. You mentioned that you and your wife started the business. So how many years at that point had you been married? And then what was your, I know you have a couple kids. So what was your kid situation through there as well? What was that?
Yeah. So we were single, double income, no kids. And we had just gotten married 6 months ago. So 6 months in, we started a business together. And her parents were starting a business as well. They're entrepreneurial and a lot of fun to be around, and I enjoy them. But we were starting that business as well, and really on boots on the ground, kind of building a retail store. And so it was kind of a busy time. We didn't have kids for about 5 years, so we worked together in the beginning. We realized we didn't work well together, and in I think year 2 we stopped working together. And it actually was really one of the best decisions for our marriage. And it was, we both, say it's one of the best decisions we've made. Honestly, it's been amazing to not work together and to work together at home in the evenings and more on the family and that sort of thing versus in the business.
Yeah. And so you have how many kids now?
3 kids, 7, 5, and 3.
Cool.
So how does your wife feel now?
Feel about what? About the problem?
Yeah.
The situation, I'm thinking.
Yeah, your situation.
My wife is so easygoing and carefree that she is just like, you'll figure it out and it'll be good. And don't put so much pressure on yourself, and just wait and trust the Lord and listen.
So she's opposite of you. She's opposite of you is what you're saying.
Yeah, in terms of the type A-ness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do your aspirations align? Does your wife and you have the same vision for the business?
Yes and no. I say that because, again, she really doesn't care whether it's a $10 million business or a $1 million business. It doesn't matter to her. It's, am I being fulfilled during the workday? Is it meaningful for the family? Is it affording us the lifestyle that we want? And we've sort of reached the lifestyle that we know, the one that we designed several years ago, and kind of have a lot of the things that we want and need. Nothing extravagant or too extravagant, I would say, but just, sort of feeling pretty comfortable. And so, yeah, I think we do align in terms of that. And I'm not such a moonshot person where I'm like, we're going to build $100 million company or go to Mars or something where we'd be so disaligned. She's very in an entrepreneurial family, growing up in that. Her brother's an entrepreneur. Her dad's an entrepreneur. Her other dad from another marriage is an entrepreneur. So like she's totally aligned with this lifestyle.
Where's your business? We're going to talk about, I know we're going back a little bit to get some context, right? Which is helpful for all of us and especially for listeners. Kind of bringing us to the present, top line revenue right now for your business. And then what does a monthly budget, like net income, look like for you? You said you kind of designed this lifestyle that you're good with. So put some numbers to that to give us some context.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the lifestyle is we're taking a good salary, good wage, able to do some distributions and sort of live comfortably off of that. And also put money back into the business. Well, sometimes we've definitely hit over the last few years when we kind of hit this plateau and started trying to push past it. We've kind of been more on like a negative to break even on net profit. And we've made some major changes so that going into next year, I just actually cut a bunch more expenses recently. And I think we're able to probably do 15 to 20% net next year if we just maintained and stayed the same. I'm pretty good at kind of maintaining and staying the same a lifestyle business. But when I start to grow and have to manage the financial aspect of it and growth and the cash flow, all those pieces that go with it, it definitely seems to get a little bit messier. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Close. So give me an idea on, like, I'm curious about, because we're talking about you and your wife, and like, because your relationship with your wife obviously plays into this. And you said something I think is really important, is that what's important to her. Like you mentioned a couple of things that were important to her. Your happiness, you find fulfillment, you have purpose. And then you said that we're able to maintain our lifestyle. So like when you talk about, like, we're going to be talking about, like, do I cash flow my business? Am I setting up for myself to sell my business? And so for us to have context around that, what does a monthly like budget look like for you guys? Like top number, we spend X number of dollars a month.
In the company specifically?
No, for yourself personally, like for you guys to live, to have the lifestyle that you want to have.
That's a good question. We don't do a great job personally with the budget and managing those pieces. I don't know. I would say probably like 100 to 150,000 a year.
Does that grow? Is that top line, like before taxes or after taxes?
After.
So somewhere between 10 and 12,000 a month, right? Net take home. Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, and that's not like, I wouldn't say that's all of our expenses. That's more like total take home. But then some goes into savings. Some we bought a rental house, that sort of thing. Yeah,
so that allows you to live the lifestyle that you want to live. What was my point? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Are you wanting to increase that lifestyle, or you're like, I'm good. I knock down 150 a year after taxes. It accomplishes what I want personally and what your wife wants. Does that do it?
I mean, I think, in terms of not getting too selfish, there's, I would love to go on vacation and do all these different things, 10 times a year or whatever, but 2 times a year vacation is pretty good too. So it affords us a really nice lifestyle. But definitely, do I want for more? Probably, but it's not something that's crazy, to put it in context, Big A, like when we first hired a financial planner, like 12 years ago, whatever, when we started the business, he said, what do you need when you retire per year? And I was like, we both said, probably like 60 grand a year. That's probably what we need. We just didn't know, we like to live pretty simply. And that, obviously grows. I don't know if it's Pareto's principle or whoever, but you basically grow to your income level. And so you end up spending more, but
that would be living simply. You're right.
Yeah.
So your position right now is you've got an internal battle going on with a desire to grow. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the day. I desire to grow. Personally, I love growth. Like I do not like the status quo. I want to improve. If I'm not learning every day, it's a failure of a day. I personally love that the growth. I read a book constantly. I'm constantly reading new books, that sort of thing. And so,
do you implement what you read?
Quite a bit, yes. A lot of the reading, I think, is filtering for the right material. If I read 100 books, there's probably 10 that are worth reading and kind of hit the right spot, right? And so I implement the things that matter. And I think those have been, when I look back, those things have been the most successful for me when I do implement those things.
So real quick, so I'm a guest on this show, but I'm going to jump in here. Why are we here? Like, what do you need? What's the problem? We all have a little bit of history with you, like all of us, but like, why are we here? Like, what's the point of this?
That's a good question. I think it's helping me to understand, this tension that I feel between optimizing for a cash flow business or taking a growth path, sort of like taking the red pill and like, what am I in for in the next 3 to 5 years to go do that? And, in a sense, like getting clarity around which path to take.
All right. So just for clarity's sakes, because I want to make sure that we've actually said what we've discussed on the show here and not something that maybe some of us have had conversations privately with you or whatever, whether you should grow or you should what?
Cash flow. Like not maintain, I would say.
As is or grow. Is that the question?
Not as is, but like continue to optimize operationally so that we hit a really good net profit number, 15, 20%, something like that, right? And grow at 10 to 20% versus 50% or 70%. The path to an exit requires a lot of things to change and to create value, like enterprise value, to get a good multiple. The path to just living a lifestyle and having a lifestyle business does not require as crazy a growth and doesn't require as much, massive change inside the business. Still requires growth, operational growth, efficiencies, those sorts of things, but not necessarily like what an exit would entail.
Have you ever heard, have you read the book Built to Sell?
Yes.
Okay. So do you look at your business as, hey, like if I designed it to sell, that almost all of those changes and innovations that I'm going to deploy in the business are going to serve me well if that's what I decide. And they're also going to serve me well if I don't. Do you believe that to be true, or did you read that differently?
It's been a long time since I've read it, but I do really understand the principle of it. I believe that most of those changes would be beneficial to the company, but I do believe there's different paths of changes based on where your ultimate vision and goal is, right?
Kevin, are you asking if there's 3 choices at the moment, or is there only 2 choices, and then when you get to the end of the line, you make the determination as to left or right?
More so like that. Like for me, when I understood the idea, like especially you're in a SaaS type business, correct? I mean, would you say you are like a SaaS type business, Eric, or not? Is it?
No, I would say it's more like a creative services type business. Yeah.
All right. So it's slightly different.
Agency.
All right. But still in practice, I think that if you have
Probably
if you have any inkling that you might want to sell, that a lot of the things that, not all of them, but a lot of the things that you might do to get yourself in a position to sell 3 years, 5 years down the road, whatever that vision is, are going to closely align to what you want from the business today and for yourself if you choose more of a cash flow type mindset. But I don't know, and my question to you would ultimately be this. What does it look like? Like, what's the vision for you? What does it look like if you choose one or the other? Like if you decide more of a cash flow type, because aren't there some concerns? I mean, you've kind of alluded to them a little bit. There's some concerns that market conditions are different than they used to be. You've had to innovate quite a bit. So if you don't build to sell, aren't you like running a huge risk? Isn't your risk greatly increased if you just try to cash flow and manage in that scenario?
That's a good point. Yes, I think so. And the phrase, the proverb, like if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, it is a reality just with inflation and everything else that's kind of happening. Entropy sets in. So I do agree with those things. I think what comes to mind is just the pace of growth. Yes, I want to innovate and evolve, but at what pace? It changes your lifestyle, I believe. It's a lot more pressure. It takes away the margin that, well, I feel like at least it takes away the margin that I have, that I've enjoyed. And
it sounds like that's what's most important to you is.
I mean, those are definitely part of my values. Like my values are God first, family, freedom of time, money, and purpose, and relationships, and then being others focused and learning and growing every day. Like that would be my 5 values.
Those are great.
And so, yeah, it definitely aligns with my values. But one of my values is grow every day. So it's challenging.
I struggled with if you're not growing, you're dying. And there was times where external growth needed to pause and internal growth needed to be turned up times 10. Because when I sit here and I listen to you and you have cash flow issues, so you're already breaking your core value of financial freedom. What was your financial core value?
Financial would be like just freedom of time and money.
Freedom of money. So, I mean, over the last 5 years, have you had freedom of money?
I have, in terms of taking kind of the standard wage and some distributions. I just haven't had any extra, to pour back into the business or to, we barely get by as far as the business staying alive.
Yeah. So if we multiplied what has happened over the last 3 years into the next 3 years in building a growth business to sell, what's the results look like in 3 years if they pattern what we did in the last 3 years? No cash flow, no margin.
It's more of the same, and it seems kind of risky to me, which is why I'm bringing it up on this conversation. I'm like, I mean, growth is risky, right? You invest capital to.
I mean, even
grow.
If the numbers, like if we do this in a 3 year, that's a 50% compound annual growth rate. Just running the numbers, or a 5 years, 27%. Can you do that?
Where'd you get your numbers from, Brett?
If we
Help
said,
me
let's
understand.
sell in 7 years and we got to get to this amount of revenue, can you grow 50% every year?
Yeah, that's the question. I don't really know. I mean, we've tried approaching that level of growth and have not been able to do it. Now,
so what's the problem?
I've grown individually. I've let's say adopted. Well, to be honest, like I haven't been really leading the company. I've had other people leading the company for a little bit, and so I'm way more committed now than I was then. Like I was going through a season where I needed that break, and it was good. And even though it was kind of terrible, like I do believe that I'm turning it around right now, actually. And I do feel like I'm capable of doing that. And so it's kind of that unknown. I mean, can I get 50% year over year for 3 years? I don't know. Maybe. But history tells me no, but history also is clouded with some bad decisions, hiring the wrong people or not letting someone go fast enough or not having the wisdom of, certain experiences with lead generation or whatever, marketing, the right marketing person, or philosophies like who, not how, and buy back your time and 10X. Like those sorts of things kind of have grown me as well, that I may be capable now, but I don't know.
Are you the right guy running the business? Is this your
genius? Yeah, I felt like I wasn't, and then I saw 2 guys that weren't 2 that were doing it and didn't do it, I'd say, as good as me. We were looking at, I'm embarrassed to say, we were looking at some company reviews, and there's some fairly bad reviews of our company internally, ex-employees. But my wife said, "Hey, you notice that's not when you were running the company, you know?" And so I can't say that we can't do it or I can't do it, because when I ran the company in the first, 8 to 10 years or whatever, we did pretty well. It's when I took my foot off the gas and let someone else take over that we haven't done well. So I don't know how to answer that question, Brett, because I didn't feel like I was the right person, but having seen 2 failures, now I think that I am. And
So
I have a stronger mindset behind it too.
Did you have the right people, but you didn't equip them with the right tools to be successful? Because everything rises and falls on you. At the end of the
first
day,
person was not the right person.
Yeah.
The first person was not the right person. The second person was a great person. I really enjoyed him and loved him. I think he was great at operations and kind of maintaining, but he was not great at growth and did not know what it took to solve the revenue engine problem. Every time we try to do that, he never seemed to get revenue increased.
Well, that's typically not an operations role anyway. I'm just going to say that out loud.
Right. But when he tells me he can every day and he will, and then doesn't do it, that's the challenge. Whereas, in 2 months I've taken over, I've already got it up. And I've got a good plan to get it further. And I have a lot of confidence in myself that I can do it, because I'm kind of back against the wall, ready to go. That's where I kind of thrive.
I was kind of surprised to see that you got rid of $30K a month payroll and you're just going to maintain revenue. How did that happen? All I see is, well, I mean, you got rid of $30K in payroll and revenue stays the same. Why did we even have $30K in payroll in the first place?
Well, it was
they weren't doing anything.
Well, they were attempting. That was the thing. They were attempting to get revenue, and they didn't get revenue. Yeah. And in order to get, I hired A players. I hired more senior people that cost a lot, and they didn't perform. And that's what growth's going to take too. So that's another scary thing. Is growth's going to take a 6-figure person to go and get us.
Eric, do you have the resources to grow?
Depends on what resources you mean. I have a good team. I have a great bench of I just did strategy work with a great strategist. So I have a good strategy in place. I've got a fractional CRO. I've got a fractional CFO. I think I've got a lot more parameters to allow for smarter growth and oversight. In terms of the capital, I don't know. That's the question. Is I don't know what it's going to take to grow at that level.
Here's an observation.
Per dollar of revenue?
You've been having a little bit of backstory with you and seeing you over the last couple of years, 18 months, 24 months, and where you are today. First of all, I just want to say congrats and well done. You've launched a bunch of weight. Your mental clarity that you have today, I saw you at a live event that we were at about a month ago, and quite honestly, you were a whole different person.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say well done. You went through a season. It was hard. You made some decisions to try to get some help in the business. You probably didn't make the best decisions because you were burnt out. You've gone through that season. You tried some other things, and there's definitely a revitalized, attitude that you have. So I don't want that to be lost on what we're talking about today. One of my observations, I could be completely off on this, is that, oh crap, I forgot what I was going to say. Hate it when that happens.
You getting old, Wally?
I know, man. I know.
He's got grandkids.
I do it all the time.
He's really old.
Hey, while you're gathering your thoughts, Eric, I have a question. Is what is it going to take to make the decision? Whether you want to build a cash flow business and sit there and trade your time for money, nothing wrong with that if that's what you want, or to build a business to sell. I think that's the crux of the first problem, is you deciding what it is that you want. So how can we help you unpack what it is that you want?
I have no idea how to answer that question.
Real quick, let's play the therapy game for a second and say we close our eyes and we go to sleep and all of our problems are gone when we wake up. what is it that you're doing? There are no limitations. There's nothing in your way. And you open your eyes, what is it that you're doing? You're a perfect person. Risk isn't an issue. What are you doing?
I think where I have been the last 2 months, taking back over this team, leading this team, getting to know who they are as individuals, encouraging and developing them, sort of figuring out the strategy and diagnosing the problems, kind of finding the right path forward. That's been like my dream day, to just do that sort of stuff and then have the margin to, go do ministry work or whatever, just whether it's sharing the gospel with somebody or having a lunch with somebody or whatever, right? That's pretty good. And I would like to start another company at some point. I think the beginning phases is really interesting and fun. I'd love to work with, like the last startup that I worked on had a great co-founder, and working with someone like that, it's super brilliant. It's just a really cool opportunity. That's kind of what comes to mind in terms of what I want.
All right. So if I ask the question again, I say, let's play a little bit of ISI, come as you will be. In 3 years, what does it look like? Do that same thing. You've woken up, we're 2020, whatever, 3 years from today. What do you want it to look like? Because I have a suspicion is what I'm getting at, and I'm going to disclose what that is in a second. But what does it look like? Eric, tell us about what you're excited about your business now that it's 2026. Not the date, the podcast.
Yeah, man, I have a hard time with that. I struggle with the future. Tell me 3 years what it looks like.
How much revenue are you making this year?
Right now, about 2 million.
2026.
Oh, 2026?
Yeah.
Again, it depends if I decide to go for an exit.
What do you want it to be? It's okay. There's not a wrong answer.
Let's just say 5 million.
5 million. How many employees do you have?
10.
What does your life look like? Work-life balance and margin with your children?
I think very similar to what I have now. Maybe a little more at that age. My kids are a little older. It'd be nice to have a little more time. Let's say working 4 days a week, something like that. But, feeling good in my body, exercising, all those things that I'm doing right now, margin for ministry.
That's my next question.
Team,
how are you
taking
building
care?
God's kingdom and not yours?
Yeah, that's something I'm really wrestling with since the last event. I feel like I have been really focused on with even the exit, right? Like that's building my kingdom mostly. I mean, yes, I'll give away lots of money to nonprofits and I'll bless the team in some way and, those sorts of things. So it's not necessarily fully selfish, but in terms of other people, yeah, I want to give back. I have a big goal, of sharing, a lot of money in 10 years, to nonprofits and people and missions and ministries that I care about, investing in young entrepreneurs and those sorts of things.
Are you giving that same percentage of your revenue now that you want to give in 10 years? You said 10 million and 10%, you'd give $1 million. So if you made $100,000 today, are you giving away 10,000?
Oh yeah. I'm doing that. Yeah.
So you're living.
I think I'd want to give a little bit more than that on the back end. Like I'd like to double that probably.
I just wanted to break down what Anthony was trying to say and ask you the very specific question so that you could just answer that. Here's the thing that I noticed off what Anthony said. Not one time did you mention selling your business.
Mm-hmm.
It was running the business, the people. The other thing I'll say is why can't you do ministry today?
No, I can't.
It's right in front of you. Businesses can be the church more than, honestly, some of the churches can church.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make an impact, a huge impact with what's in your hands right now instead of waiting till that time. And you may be doing that. I'm not saying you're not, but.
Eric, is vocational ministry more of an interest to you than being in this creative business? I
don't really know what vocational ministry is. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Well, do you want to be a pastor, or do you want to be missionary?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No,
okay.
no,
okay.
no. I don't want to do. No, I feel like my sphere of influence is the business world.
I wonder if you're more of a
Marketplace.
creator developer. Are you a creator developer more than you're kind of a maintainer manager? Do you see, because you've mentioned 2 or 3 different times during this, there'd be different businesses you would like to start. Are you a startup guy?
So I'm hot and cold on about everything in life. So you look at the Enneagram, I'm a 6, and it says you're hot and cold. You're yes and no. And so I'm both a creator and both a maintainer. And even on the working genius, I'm at the very top, 30,000 foot, and I'm at the very bottom, 5,000 foot. And
What
so
is your working
I
genius? What is it? Wonderment?
Wonder and tenacity. So I'm
That
always
is the
living in these.
swing.
I'm always living in these polar
What?
opposites, right? I'm an achiever, but I'm this really risk averse, fear based 6 in the Enneagram. So it's weird, Hence the tension and why we're here.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, what I was going to say earlier, I want to circle back to this, is that, and the reason I said this, I wanted to mention that some of the strides that you've made is because you are in this place of tension, and I don't think that you should. I don't want to tell you what to do. I would consider that. I'm not going to use the word rest, but I'd consider that you've made a ton of changes recently, like in the last year, for yourself, like a lot. And you've gotten your business to the point where you just said, hey, we actually, maybe make, instead of a 5% profit, we may be able to make a 15% or a 20% profit, heading into 2024. These changes that you're making, like, I'd ask you to think about, like, are they necessarily like one, that's kind of like my initial question was, are they necessarily like one direction completely versus the other? Or are they really more like, hey, I need to like take a breath for a second. Like, I'm making these changes, like they're good. Listen, you got on here and you're talking about, I've got a fractional CFO. You just got a fractional CRO, correct? Like that's recent. Yeah. So that's Chief Revenue Officer for those that are listening that may not know what that is. And a CRO is really responsible for like go to market, top level revenue strategy, where they're going to find that marketplace to dive into. And then that CRO is going to help Eric figure that out. And then Eric's going to take that essential plan and put it to work, right? That's what he's going to do in his business. And so you've also got some help on the marketing side, which I think is aligned to that. And so you made a lot, like you've let go and transitioned your integrator out. You've got yourself kind of back in that role. You can see some money popping up in the bank account every month again. That's kind of maybe building versus depleting. And so you've made a ton of changes in a very good direction. Yeah. Yet you still feel this like, And I would just encourage you to maybe consider the changes that you made, to let them soak in for a second. Like, let them meld. Let some of the direction, the plans that you guys are putting together, let some of that direction happen, and not be so like wound up with, oh my gosh, I got to make this decision. Like, I feel like, off balance and pulled here and pulled there because I'm not quite sure if I should do this or if I should do this. I think if you thought about it, like your business, you're making some great decisions. Your business may inform you as you continue to move forward potentially.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. It's good.
I think
Go ahead, Big.
I kind of do. But on the same hand, at some point, you've got to make a decision. You can't have either or, polar opposites forever in deciding on the business. I'll be honest with you. I've been guilty of the very spot that you're in right now with Wally. Recently, we were talking about some things in our business in ISI, and he said, you have to make some decisions about what you want. You have to. We can't go forward until you make some decisions. And I'm having to make some decisions now about some things that I'm wanting to change. And so I'm encouraging you. You can't ride this fence forever. You have got to decide, because even Built to Suit or Built to Sell, he talks about the speed by which you build your business. It makes it more valuable, And then the roles that you play. And if you're going to continue to be there in a cash flow business, you may maintain that position yourself personally. But if you're going to build it to sell, you can't be in that position. And so you're quickly going to have to make some decisions. Mm-hmm. If you're just building a lifestyle business or a cash flow business and you're good, minimal increases every year and your life is good, you've got the time, you can do ministry, you got the financial freedom. Or if you really wanted to sell. I'm just encouraging you at some point, you got to make that decision.
So I've got a question, or I've got a statement associated with a question and a comment. I have like all of the above. So I'm listening and I'm taking my notes as I will, and I've got my scatter graph all over my notes all over the place here. So let me just say a couple things that I've heard you say on this call. So you talked about panic. You talked about burnout. You talked about pace. You talked about a scary situation. You talked about anxiety a little bit. I think all of that and this was based on your burnout phase as you describe it, all of that puts you in a place that puts you in a cycle that you don't want to ever go back to. And that cycle is scary. That cycle creates a fear, and that's a cycle you don't want to go into. So the space you're in right now is a safe place preventing you from getting into that cycle. Here's what I'll say. And in addition to all of that kind of compilation of all those different things that are that cycle you don't want to go to, I think you're really good at dreaming, actually. But I think what you're really good at dreaming, there's a detachment there where you're not actually dreaming for yourself, because you can't describe anything of what you want for us exactly or specifically. So there's some form of detachment right there. So with all that being said, here's what I'll say. You're enough. And you've got this, and you're good enough, and you can do this. Like, I believe in you. That's all great, though. Now, my next set of words, like I'm trying to jam all this in. This is like 16 sessions, right? Jam all this in and say, but you also have to act, right? So you are enough. You are good. I believe you have this, and I believe that you're not going to fall. You don't have to fall back into that cycle and be afraid of that cycle. If I was to give you advice, just like Kev said, I would say go for the build. I think you want the build. I think that's what you really want. But you're scared of some of that cycle that you don't want to fall back into. And yeah, there's some legitimate cash flow issues and maybe even directional issues and all that. But I think one of the things you said, oh yeah, I'd take 10 vacations would be great. I think if I sat down with you and we really talked about it, you don't want 10 vacations. I think you want to build, if I'm surmising all of this. And I think you need to work on the act side. And there is going to be some specifics. That's why we have the other experts in the room to tell us what are the specifics associated with that.
It's kind of my point earlier, is that I think that if you look back at the last 6 months, like he's made, Eric, he's made a ton of like some big changes in his business, right? To set himself up for success. Big A, I don't disagree with you. I think that he's going to come to a crossroad. He's going to come to a fork in the road at some point in the near future where he's going to have to, say, yeah, for sure, I'm going this way or I'm going this way.
At some point.
I don't think we can forget either that AI can play a part in the value of his business in the next 3 to 5 years. If he knows that's true, and I think that helps him make the decision on what to do today.
Brett, give us a little more context around that, because I think maybe you're reading something off of some information that he gave that the audience may not know.
And just like in terms of pricing, for him, the risk of being displaced by AI and the services that he provides. So as we sit here and talk through this, and we talk about this growth in 3 to 5 years, if he builds this business of $7-8 million in revenue, and because of AI, they value it at $500,000, is he happy with what he built? And then he can only tell us that risk if that's really there. I don't think everybody's going to want to go to AI, and depending on how his marketing works out, I mean, he could still get business. Not everybody's going to do that. But it's definitely going to play a part. Would you, am I going down the right path there, Eric?
I think so. I think, there's the very unknown about AI. and just the innovation that's happening in the creative space. I mean, we're actually using AI for some of our client work, and
There
you
you
know,
go.
Mm-hmm.
people can't even tell the difference who's writing a script or who's doing a voiceover. We're saving a lot of money there, and so eventually, you know, AI can just create what we create. It's not too far away from it, and I know it's like talking to the strategist, he said it's probably unlikely that within 5 years it's going to fully displace you, but it's definitely something that you need to be very, very aware of and pay attention to and try to implement and use and utilize. But I do wonder if the valuation is going to be terrible there. And one of the things I got a physical sensation when you talked about building for another few years, and then this thing that I've spent, let's say, 15 years building is just worth 500 grand. Like, that's worthless to me. Like, I want security for my family if I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to commit to another 3 or 4 years of intense type growth, right?
So you just planted a stake. That's the most confident decision you've made the whole time we've made this discussion. In this discussion, to say if it's this, then it's a no. Right? Why is that? Peel back the layers right there. If it's not worth it for my family, I'm not going to do it. So there's this certain amount sitting at the end of this that if only when we get to this point it's worth this, I'll do it. If it's not, then I'm not going to do it. Right?
Right.
It's going to help you make the decision. You can also use that AI to increase your value.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not going to know how to use it.
Yeah.
And the creative people can use it to your advantage. You've already said it's lowered your cost of goods sold. And so you get proficient with that, and it could make you more attractive.
Right.
And so it can be used, to, catapult your business to the next level if you are fluent with
Or
it.
become the leader in teaching people how to use it.
Yeah.
Huge. So what are you going to do?
I don't know. I'm going to think about all this for a while, probably, knowing myself.
Eric, how risk averse are you?
I'm pretty risk averse. It's pretty crazy that I'm an entrepreneur, to be honest, or that I've done business efforts. Like, I think God's got something for me in this space that I would not have picked on my own, but I've ended up loving it, and I love every book and everything about business. I love learning about it and growing in it. But I'm very risk averse. Yes. Again, hot and cold, right?
Other insights or thoughts?
I mean, I still struggle with the hot and the cold. And I'll just go back to a statement you made. God's got something for you in this type of business that you do, and yet we're going to sell it. So where does God come into play with that?
Well, I don't know that he has it in this particular business. I think he has it in this space, right? This business space. For me, the exit is security and stability for my family. And then I'm definitely going to have to go find the next thing to build. There's no way I'm going to retire and go sit on an island or anything. Retirement isn't even a thing for me. I want to be building other things and giving away money. And so an exit sort of gets me the next step up, but I'm still gonna have to go create something else.
So I'm going to go back to security and stability. What does that mean for you and your family?
To me, that means the world, to have that safety net
Of money?
Yeah.
How much?
Yeah, money. I don't know. There's this balance of we talked about earlier, where it's $500,000 is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. That sounds great. But if I'm going to work for 15 years for that, it's not really worth it. Right. So it's that trade-off of how much work is it going to take to get to that number, and in my head, that's $5 million or something like that, because I know that I also calculate the taxes and the fees and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, what can I walk away with that would make me feel, kind of strike that balance of this is security, but it's not enough that it's going to stop me from working and, that sort of thing.
If you would sell, what does your business have to be evaluated at? In what factor? Is it are you going strictly off top line revenue? Are you going off net profit, EBITDA? What factor? Is that a 3 factor? Is that a 8 factor?
Yeah. An average agency is like 3 to 4x EBITDA, which isn't great. We would have to build in different things like IP and use AI and stuff like that to create that multiple. We have to have recurring revenue, which we don't currently have. Those sorts of things, which is why I kind of think like I have to build in a different direction if I choose some of those options. But yeah, 3 to 4x EBITDA.
So what if we built the business to 5 million? You made 20%. So you made $1 million a year. You said it cost you $150,000 a year to live. That gives you what, $850 in pure profit.
Go back to those numbers, Brett. So if he does,
if he increases to $5 million a year,
20% is $1 million
margin, because that's what he's shooting for.
His EBITDA is going to be $1 million, and then he gets a 3x evaluation, right? So
that's $3 million. He wants $5 million at his exit. Because I was looking, when I calced it out based off the numbers, it was a 5x. But if he does $8 million, then he can hit that 5x to get $5 million. But if we built a cash sustaining business at $5 million a year, he makes 20%, $1 million, gives himself 170. Maybe I don't know what his cost of goods sold are. So I'd be interested to look at all that and say, but say he pays himself 170K out of that, or 200K. Let's just call it 200K. That gives him 800K. Is that security for you? And you could do 800K for the next 5 years. So we took 5 years to get to 5 million. And the next 5 years, you made 800K a year for 5 years. Is that security for you and your family?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. 800K for 5 years.
And then you take 800K and then keep doing it whenever. And you turn around and reinvest that and start building a new business after you've implemented somebody correctly in this business to run it, let AI do most of it, and go on about your day.
I think in a perfect market and environment, that works, but there's the risk of it not being able to keep going and cash flow like that for that long.
Yeah, but like, what's the alternative if you don't try?
The exit.
Right.
Exit when and for how much? For a number you said you wouldn't take.
I just gave you your exit money in 10 years, and it's still not good enough. And you still own the business, and you still have the value of it.
I may just not be not understanding it correctly then.
Let's just hypothetically, 10 years from today, we grow, and 5 years we go up to 5 million, and it takes every bit of your profit to grow your business. And then the next 5 years, you make 800K a year, 20% margin. Say you get paid out of that, and let's call it 20% margin. You now made $1 million a year for the next 5 years. So we got a 10-year timeline, 5 years hard growth, 5 years 20% in profit. You just now profited $5 million. The same thing that you wanted to sell your business for, you now have $5 million. You still have the business that could potentially go the next 5 years for another $5 million. And you don't like that.
Because of the risk.
Because the potential, it's
you don't think he can maintain it.
Yeah.
If I can't maintain that, then I invested all of it back into 5 years and I'm back at zero.
So we're the same place we are in keeping it.
There's every business owner out there feels that risk, Eric. There's not a business owner, period, that doesn't feel the same risk. I feel that. Kevin feels that. Anthony, Brett, we all feel that. We all feel it.
Yeah.
And you've just got to pick your poison. It's like, okay, am I going to build it to sell and not going to have that tolerance for risk for the long-term longevity of the business? Or am I going to, sustain that, have a sense of freedom and time and money? And, but there's no guarantees. You know what I'm saying? There's either way, there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
And you just got to pick your path of least resistance for your tolerance of risk. I have a very high tolerance for risk. I'll roll the dice. I'll push all the chips in. And so everybody's different. And so
let's rephrase the numbers.
That's why I said earlier.
Let's just change the numbers up real quick and say, okay, Eric, if you could get this in a year or 2 years from 2 million to 3 million, you're going to have to grow. I mean, if you want to have anything worth anything, you're going to have to do something different than you're doing now. And you've already just cut out a bunch of expenses. And so you maybe make 150, 200,000 next year on 15 to 20%, kind of a thing. But if you could get your business to 3 million and you could do 15% net, if you do 50% EBITDA on that, that's 450. So 450, that's 450 a year in a year or two, if you could actually do that. So, even at a 3 multiple, that's only 1.3. Take out taxes, you're going to be somewhere around 900, maybe somewhere in there, 800, 900. If you were to sell, is that something you could do in 3 years? Like, is that enough? Is that enough to work hard for the next 3 years to get your business to where you could get there and that's worth it for you? Because it doesn't sound like you're interested in the. It really doesn't sound like you're interested in
for 3 years, though, right? Like, if I'm getting 450, and still have the business and still have the potential for future.
Yeah, but the reality is, if you're doing 450 net, you're going to reinvest that, and you are to get to have that 450 at that third year. Yeah, maybe not all of it, but you're going to have to keep that up. You may have to add some more, resources or do some more sales, whatever, adds a few more people. So your number may be 3.2 or something, but the point is, like, it's an interesting dichotomy of where you're at. Cause you do think on one end where it's like, do I not do anything different and milk this thing? Or do I grow and go over here? But it's like, you're really not interested in either one at the end of the day. Like that's the vibe, right? It's like, you're really not, like, of your two choices, it's like, you really don't want either one. So you've got to find either like figure out which one you really can be committed to, or find some variable that's going to help you, that's more realistic to you. I think that's part of it. I don't think that either one of these options, do nothing, hard to go crazy with it. I don't think either one of those is super exciting to you. And that's probably where your tension comes from. I don't know if you can see it happening.
I don't think it's the excitement part. No? I think so. Like, I'm just sitting here. I love when Brett does numbers, man. And you too, Wally. Like, it's fun to watch you guys listen, or just listen to you guys work on that, right? I'm like, this is great. There's the plan. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I want to see his reaction. And his reaction was he couldn't give you that's what he wanted. Mm-hmm. So I don't think which one you want. And I kind of stand by that as far as the whole being able to dream is something you're good at. You're a wanderer, but being able to attach it to you is an issue. I'm wondering if we're trying to solve a problem here and, in our short session,
the next 10 minutes.
I'm wondering if one of the things we're doing that we should avoid with you, Eric, is not do 2, 3, 5 years out. Let's do 6 months. Let's do the next 12 months and just end there. Meaning, let's set what are we going to do for the next 12 months? What are we going to, so that you have direction that doesn't lock you in so much that wanderer is just crushed, but it also feeds into that tenacity a bit and allows you to play both sides of your personality. But at the same time, the risk tolerance, because I'm with Big A, there's a risk issue here. It also allows us to work around the risk issue. So instead of saying, hey, should we build so we can have an X amount of exit capital in 5 years? Instead of that, let's say we're going to do this for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Why are you good with that?
I think because it's hard for me to see that far into the future. Like, it's just a mystery box somewhere down there. Versus, like, I know I can feel what the last 12 months felt like, and I can say, okay, let's just translate 12 months forward.
I think that also pushes to your psychological safety cycle that I was talking about earlier, because it doesn't put you so deep into that spot where you don't see the exit. The exit, not the exit of the business, but the relief valve exit that is potential in 12 months, right? It's not the sell in 12 months. It's and I don't care what the is. It's the vacation in 12 months. It's the break in 12 months. It's the breathing in 12 months. And so now it's like, okay, I can push that far enough to where I'm not going to get caught in that negative feedback cycle loop that actually put me in a place I really don't want to ever be again in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, do you really enjoy the creative space where you're at right now? Like, are you excited? Now that you're back at the helm, you're doing it. Are you excited? Do you like it?
I love the business aspect of it, like the leading the team,
You're still
figuring out
motivated.
the
Then
strategy.
it's not like something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm
It's
like
not
on
like
fire right now. I'm having a ball.
Cody Foster is a guy I interviewed a couple of years ago. He owns Advisors XL. They're out in Topeka, Kansas. And like you, creative guy, they started a business. 3 of them did. And they bootstrapped it, no debt. And he just loves it. He just keeps doing it. 23 years now. They just passed $8 billion in top line revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're enjoying what you're doing and it's giving you that sense of purpose and meaning, and you're in your zone of genius, and you like, why do you even want to consider selling it? Why don't you just do it? You're a young guy, and let the time come where somebody approaches you and wants to buy your business rather than you approaching them, because you'll always get a lot more for it. And why don't you just set that aside and keep reinventing yourself inside the space that you're familiar with, and keep doing things that give you that sense of purpose and meaning in the space you're in. A lot of people think, well, I'll get out of this business, I'll go do this other thing, and I'll be fulfilled. And the truth is you just are aspirational and you want to grow. And it's a lot harder into a new space where you don't have relationships, you don't have connections, you don't have the skill set. Then you got to start all over. And so I would just encourage you to really pray through and think through, if this is a place that you're enjoying, just go build that thing. And somebody will probably come and try to buy it from you. Listen, as we wrap up today, any final thoughts, Anthony? Any final thoughts or input for Eric as we go?
I think I said my final thoughts like 25 minutes ago, which is, I believe in you and you got this. You are capable as you are.
I agree. Yeah.
But you can't sit here. You've got to act. You've got to move. You've got to do things. It's the positive psychology reinforcement. Then I'm going to come back at it and say, no, you can't just sit here, because you're more than that, because you're worth more than that, and you have more value. You can't just sit.
It's a good word. Brett?
First off, I just want to say the information that you provided was huge. What you've done, where you
Very
started, what you've built, even with the speed bumps you've hit on the way, you should be proud of yourself. Be encouraged. We all make bad hires, bad decisions. Be encouraged. You're not failing. You're growing. I've done it many times. So the information you put out, the vulnerability that you showed is huge. And I believe this is the step in the future growth for you and your business, because it's hard for us to do pridefully. So I just want to say it encouraged me to see you do that. I think making a decision, I hate to even get off this call and not hear what 12 months from today looks like. And to be able to get back on this call and see what happened in comparison to what we done today, if it's at 12 months where you said you were comfortable. So
we're going to give him a chance here in just a second to summarize that. Wally, any input from you?
Eric, that's your cue to be thinking about what you're going to look like in 12 months.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, as long as you heard that. Man, I think you're a smart dude. I love the fact that the language that you use, you have a high intellect. You're able to grab a hold of concepts and ideas. And I think you and I have a lot of, we've talked about this before, offline, you and I have a lot in common in some things. And so I resonate with you. I feel you. And I'm excited about the changes you've already made. And I'm excited to see how those speak into the future that you're going to create these next 12 months.
Eric, as you sit here today and you've got a lot of information to digest, and I get that, what is your sense of next right step for Eric to take? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a combo of what Anthony said and you said, Big A. It's just sort of take a look at the next 12 months, kind of take a step back from the bigger exit picture and just sort of figure out what that looks like and pray through that and really just focus on that right now. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Got a great team, got a good spiritual development, which is very, very important to me right now, and just kind of living in that and letting God kind of guide me versus trying to force something.
Eric, Wally and I took a little tour back about 6 months ago of businesses that I'd owned, places that I'd lived. And I told him one of my biggest regrets was some of the companies that I owned, I sold too quick. And if I had it to go over, I could have trained up management, probably still own the businesses today, and it'd be much more profitable than the little meager amount that I did end up with when I sold the business. And so don't get too vivacious when it comes to just getting a big lump sum of money, no future plans. You're getting out of something you enjoy. I'm not telling you or discouraging you from selling your business. I do think, though, an hour later, since we've been on this call, that it might behoove you to really think through and pray through building it and then letting that materialize over time. I want to say to the listeners that are out there today, many of you are stuck in the same position. These are some of the very exact things that you're struggling with. You're divided. You don't know whether to grow the business. You don't know whether to sell the business. I just want to encourage you to get people around you. Those that are out there, don't be isolated. Don't go this journey alone. You can go much further when you go with a tribe than you can going alone. So just get people around you. Share as Eric has today. Eric, I commend you, man. The vulnerability, the authenticity, the transparency that you've displayed on this call. You took it like a man. You took it on the chin in a lot of different ways. And that's proof to me that you're going to do better as a result of that. So I want to thank you guys for listening today. Hope this show and this episode has been beneficial to you. Thank you for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of View from the Top.
Hey, if you haven't yet, be sure to go out to viewfromthetop.com/group, and that will redirect you over to our private Facebook group page just for the audience, just for those participating in the View from the Top podcast. So we really hope you'll join us there. We have some bonus content. We're going to be continuing some of the conversation that we've had in this episode and others. So join us over there. That's viewfromthetop.com/group. Hit the join, fill out a couple questions, and we will see you there. Until next time, have an awesome week.